Welcome, Climate Viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer. News at ClimateViewer.com. Last couple videos, we've been going over a mysterious ionospheric heater in the Kola Peninsula in Russia. And a lot of questions are pouring in via email and the chat and stuff like that. What is an ionospheric heater? So I figured now is about as good a time as any to really kind of rehash this. This may be remedial for some of you longtime climate viewers, but we've had close to 5,000 new subscribers recently. So I figured it's time that we just kind of rehash this and explain to people what is the difference between HAARP and a VLF transmitter and all of these things. It's kind of complicated, but we're going to make it very simple for you today. If you're watching this somewhere else, please, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, type in ClimateViewer, all one word, no spaces, and you'll find me. And hit that subscribe button with the bell. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you'd like to come over to Connect, right there, connect.climateviewer.com, connect.climateviewer.com. Link is in the details. You could find all of my work, all three of my websites, ways to support me on Patreon with a monthly donation, PayPal, or GoFundMe, my merch shop, my videos, which are on YouTube, Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, all up to date now, and my Discord chat, along with I am now verified, great success, on Getter and Parler and the old ones, Facebook, Twitter. But I'm really digging Getter, and I just joined Parler. I will be joining more, but we need more, we need more mods. More mods, yes. The trolls, they be a trolling. And I'm sure that this is probably going to set some people off today. So, watch the chat. We'll have to see what happens with that for sure. But we shall see. Let me refresh this page. Being stupid right now without that playing. All right. And go to the full screen. All right. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation set up for you guys. We're going to go through it rather quickly. And I want you to know in advance, I did have my good friend, Chris Fallon, ex-director of HAARP, actually review this entire PowerPoint presentation for accuracy, and he only had a problem with the very last slide. He said everything else he agreed with in here, and I do have some caveats, some updates to this, but we're going to get into that right now. So I put together this PowerPoint presentation. You got your weather modification history t-shirt today. Good quality fabric and great logo front and back. Oh, that's awesome, Chinook Valley. I'm actually going to order some samples of all the merch myself just so that I can, show it on stream. But trust me, I put my work in when I put those graphics together for that. You got a notification again, Captain Tom. What? Oh, man. Lieutenant Adam Baum, Sherwood, Bill Bradley, glad y'all are in chat. Let's do this damn thing. Man, that's awesome. I'm actually jealous I haven't got my own damn WMH t-shirt yet, and Chinook Valley's already got her. So what is an ionospheric heater? This is the term of the day. It is a powerful, high-frequency transmitter, usually 2 to 10 megahertz, that induces controlled temporary modification to the electron temperature at a desired altitude. So, to put it very simply, it cooks the electrons at a certain height in the sky. We could call them sky heaters. They're specifically designed to focus a large amount of energy in the millions of watts, and then in HAARP's case, in the billions of watts in effective radiated power. Now, I'm going to use a lot of scientific terms today. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, but the effective radiated power is, a factor of how much power plus the decibel gain of the antennas. Too technical, won't go there, but regardless, there's a difference between the power you put in and the power you get out and what that effective radiated power is. For HAARP, it's 3.6 million watts in an effective radiated power of 5 gigawatts or gigawatts, or like, as they said in Back to the Future, 1.21 gigawatts is a lightning bolt. Well, HAARP is 5 gigawatts worth, or billion watts worth of effective radiated power. So this is the big difference between being broadcast, like what we see here with a VLF transmitter. This is in Exmouth, Australia. And this is the Harold E. Holt Naval Station, which operates at 19.8 kilohertz and 2 million watts. But the thing is, it isn't focused as, say, HAARP over here on the side, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, specifically the Ionospheric Research Instrument, which is the antennas array here. HAARP is all of these things here, from the ionosondes, the digisonde, the all-sky camera, the LiDAR, the incoherent scatter radars. All of this together is HAARP, plus the diesel generators that power it. But the actual antenna is called the IRI, or the Ionospheric Research Instrument, and it is a square array, and the array focuses and can steer the beams, whereas the VLF transmitter on the left, it broadcasts in every direction simultaneously at a very high power. What's going on with the sound? The sound should be superb. Is anybody else having a problem with the sound? Little quick update. If you guys are having any problem with the stream, I'm going to be outraged, because I just went from, yes, you're able to hear it with SDR. Somebody's asking about software-defined radar. You can go to a web SDR and listen to the frequencies, 2.8 to 10 megahertz of HAARP, and you can tell when it's on. In fact, I used to do that all the time because people were saying that it's always on. It's not always on. It's expensive to run. Right now, they're renting it out by the hour, by the day. The University of Alaska Fairbanks is. But back to what I was saying. So yeah, you can listen to any of these facilities that are on ClimateViewer.org, and you'll be able to tune into them using software-defined radio, and actually see the signals, listen to them, know when they're on and operating. Pretty freaking awesome stuff. Good question, though. And what I was going to say, I just switched to fiber freaking optics. So right now, I just went from the last decade of being on cable modem from the cable TV. I was at 300 megabytes by 40 megabytes upload. I am now on fiber optics at 1 gigabyte per second upload and download. Holla at ya, boy! I'm excited. You guys have no idea. I have been like poning fools in Call of Duty. I got a 2 millisecond ping the other day. Ooh. Ooh. That shit gets me amped. But anyway, so if there's a problem with the stream today, I'm going to be highly upset, because this boy is kicking out some mad packets right now. But back to the story. So I do have an ionospheric heater map. You can check that out at climateviewer.org. It also combines all of these features seen here, from ionospheric heaters to Super Darn to the ISCAT, incoherent scatter radars, other ISRs, missile defense radars, lasers and directed energy stations, ionosondes, and ELF and VLF transmitters all across the globe. Boy, that's a lot of freaking power coming out at all them places that I mapped out. Took 10 years to do it, but they're available for you at any time. Back to the presentation. So the top four that I would mention right off the get is obviously HAARP's IRI, the Ionospheric Research Instrument, the Tromsø Ionospheric Heater in Ramfjord, Norway. Anyway, Arecibo Observatory Enhanced High Frequency ionospheric heating instrument. Damn, that's a mouthful, in Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Yes, it's down in the bottom of that big bowl, the dome that you saw in the 007 movie. And Sura, the ionospheric heating facility in Novgorod Oblast, Russia. It is a dinosaur, but it's been along longer than any of these. So yeah, that's the top 4 most powerful ionospheric heaters. I should have probably included Jicamarca, Peru. It's technically a super darn, but it's 4.5 million watts. So it actually has a higher power output than HAARP, but you know, we can argue that all day. Anyway, and I showed you that map already. So why do they heat the ionosphere? You can actually watch this video presentation on my YouTube channel, Converting the Ionosphere into a Laboratory Without Walls, Active Ionospheric Research with HAARP. It is on my channel. You can watch the entire PowerPoint presentation from the American Meteorological Society by Bob McCoy and Chris Fallon and Bill Bristow. It's available on my YouTube channel. Check it out. But basically, they're using the sky as a lab, and they're doing it with the microwaves. So why do they heat it? Space weather control, for terrestrial weather modification, for climate control, affect global temperatures, for space warfare, anti-satellite and ICBMs, radiation belt remediation, and artificial aurora, for pushing radiation out of the ionosphere and dumping it on the poles to create artificial aurora, the aurora borealis, the aurora australis, to artificially create that by dumping radiation on the poles. Create extremely and ultra low frequency waves to signal the apocalypse, talking to submarines, artificial gravity waves, and traveling ionospheric disturbances. For mind control, EMF health effects. Russia actually put out a statement saying that they were concerned about the HAARP facility affecting the mental health of entire continents. That doesn't mean that HAARP is actually putting signals out there that can make you do things or tell you to do things. But this is one of those common things that are put out there, mind control. I would be more concerned about the electromagnetic frequency health effects of that, or electrosmog. Anyway, create artificial ionospheric mirrors to reflect radio signals. And that has advanced to the BAE Systems laser developed atmospheric lens. Probe underground structures. Actually, they tried this, didn't work too well, but the idea was to create ELF and VLF waves, extremely low frequency waves, that pass through the Earth to make 3D imaging of underground tunnels containing nuclear bombs in Iran, and then collect that with the LOFAR, or the low frequency array, that's scattered all the way across the entirety of Europe, which are low frequency listening posts, and then create a 3D image of an underground structure. You can't make this stuff up. Create artificial earthquakes? Question mark. We're going to save that one for the end. But space weather control, scientific experiments to control conditions in the region of space close to the Earth, especially the presence of electromagnetic radiation and charged particles emitted by the sun that can only affect human activity and technology. Space weather control, or space weather modification. If you want to learn more about space weather modification, go to climateviewer.com/HAARP, or go to weathermodificationhistory.com and click on space weather modification. Yeah, you figured it out. Because as Lyndon Johnson, former president, said, control of space means control of the world. From space, the masters of infinity would have the power to control Earth's weather, to cause drought and flood, to change the tides and raise the levels of the sea, to divert the Gulf Stream and change temperate climates to frigid. That's right. From space, you can control the Earth's weather. And that's not me saying it. That's Lyndon Johnson saying it. Arecibo got a grant to rebuild. Yes, I heard about that. I'm watching chat, man. You guys are so on it, man. I love my climate viewers. You guys always are. Most of you already know. You gotta spread the word though, man. Sharing is caring. Gently smush that like button if you want to holler at your boy. Space Weather Control has a long history, like upper atmospheric nuclear explosions, where they tried to destroy the ionosphere. They just have the military does not like the ionosphere because it's unpredictable. So they thought at one time, well, let's just destroy the damn thing. And they were literally launching nukes into space. Operation Argus, 1958, Operation Hardtack, 58, Starfish Prime, 1962, Operation K, Russia, 1962. It wasn't until the Russians tried to start blowing up space as well that they all agreed that they should stop doing it. And that led to the Limited Test Ban Treaty. So, like I said, the ionosphere is unpredictable. So they couldn't blow it up. So the next idea was, well, why don't we just replace it? And they came up with Project Westford, the Westford Needles, 480 million copper dipole antennas launched into orbit. And a lot of those are still up there today. It is considered one of the stupidest experiments ever undertaken by man. No joke. Seeding plasma with sounding rockets and satellites. This picture says from Cornwall 1972. This paper is actually from 1963. Actually 1958. Create an artificial ion cloud in interplanetary space for studying the state of interplanetary medium. Sounding rocket experiments of May 1963. Sounding rockets dump chemicals like aluminum, trimethyl aluminum, barium, strontium, lithium, the list goes on. All the EMs, the metals. So the reason they do this is because space is invisible, and the solar winds and the winds at that altitude, all of these things are invisible until you dump chemicals in them and then you light them up with a radar. And that's what they do. And now they do that in conjunction with ground-based, high-powered microwaves. You can't make this up. Here, in fact, here's the pictures of that. Plasma seeding is just like weather modification, where you have cloud seeding. You seed the sky to produce electron emissions and to make the invisible visible. This is a luminous trimethyl aluminum trail. This is a daytime lithium trail, because lithium happens to be one of the only chemicals they can shoot out of one of these Black Brant sounding rockets that can be seen during the daytime. And then over here it says the purple red part is ionized component, which has become elongated by Earth's magnetic field lines. The purple blue cloud that surrounds the red ionized barium is a combination of neutral barium and strontium. The blue and white trail is the lower portion of the image, is trimethyl aluminum vapor trail that reveals neutral wind trails as a function of altitude. So this is barium and strontium at the top, and this is trimethyl aluminum, and then it trailing off, and then the wind actually blowing it around, because there's not much wind up at the top end of the atmosphere. But as you start to come down, the wind picks up and it blows it all in circles, and they can trace all of this. And over here on this other side, you can see the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment, or CARE, because as we all know, people who heat the ionosphere and dump chemicals out of sounding rockets care. Yeah. Moving along. Then in the 70s, 80s, all the way, this is up to 1993, before the original ionospheric heater at Arecibo was destroyed by a hurricane, you can see this paper, multiple instrument studies of chemical releases and heating at Arecibo. And this was from one of these chemical releasing satellites, not a sounding rocket. We're talking about a satellite now. And it was called the Combined Release and Radiation Effects Satellite, CRES. and it dumped barium, strontium, lithium, calcium, and sulfur hexafluoride, which is the banned greenhouse gas chemical that nobody likes. Sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. Look it up. It's bad. Yeah, somebody's bringing this needs to be shared with. Quite frankly, I'm interrupting my boy right now. I never ever interrupt my boy right now, because quite frankly, he's on from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock Monday through Friday. That is my ninja. And I'm only doing this because the kids are out of the house right here at the moment, at the present, and I'm trying to race through this before they get home because I'm going to spend some time with them, and then I'm going to turn my Quite Frankly on right after I'm done with this, and hopefully, Quite Frankly, we'll download this and put it up on his network as well, because you know what, sharing is caring, and I make these videos for free, and they're free due to all the generous donations from beautiful people like you. So please continue to donate. All your donations really help out a lot. And let's get through this quickly because, you know, my boy Frank's on. I got to get over there too. So there are international treaties on all of this. You can read all of this at weathermodificationhistory.com. Great care must be exerted so that they don't produce a widespread or long-lasting or severe effects on the environment, because that would be a violation of NMOD, and nobody violates NMOD because that would be a bad thing. But you can learn more about that at climateviewer.com/NMOD. That's the weather warfare ban. So whenever they're doing these experiments, they say they don't want to do that. So anyway, the Department of Defense created HAARP in 1989-1990. They had this joint service program, plans and activities from the Air Force Geophysics Lab and the Navy Office of Naval Research. And they had this workshop on ionospheric modification and generation of extremely low frequencies in January of 1990. And they had, you know, all of these workshops. I'd love to see the presentations from that thing. I probably never will, but that would be absolutely phenomenal. HAARP became operational in 1994 and was running at full power. Machnaud, hey, I greatly appreciate. Thanks for the education, Machnaud says. Hey man, I appreciate you too, brother. Thank you for the super chat. Or sister. I will not mock what your gender is or assume it. Thank you very much. The HAARP facility became operational at a radiated power of 960 kilowatts in 1994, and all 180 towers, 72 foot tall, 80 feet apart, were finished in 2006 and operating at full power of 3.6 megawatts in 2006. And of course, we all know how that ended up. The military ended up selling it to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. So in this image, I've actually got weather modification technologies to control the weather today. Video and PowerPoint presentation on that as well. But this infographic I created basically covers all of the technology used today: ionospheric heaters, sounding rockets, satellites, lasers, cloud seedings, cloud ionizers, stratospheric aerosol injection, ship tracks, contrail-induced cirrus, and water vapor pollution from things like wet surface air coolers, cloud creation via smokestacks, cooling towers, TMS 65, J2X rockets, jet engines. For all those people who say that I don't talk about that stuff that Weather War 101 used to talk about, I have all of the wet surface air coolers on the planet, or at the very least in America, on climateviewer.org. So you can go see all of the nuclear reactors of the world, coal plants, at least in America, nuclear plants worldwide. You can see where those wet surface air coolers are. That's freaking awesome. So terrestrial weather modification. What about, does this affect weather on the ground? Chemtrail, thanks for being you. Hey, I appreciate that super chat. God forbid, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Hell yeah. Chemtrail. I like it. You should, I calls them plane farts. Chemtrails, plane farts. We Southerners call them plane farts. But back in the 1970s, Ukraine was using 3 1,000 watt transmitters in parallel. Antenna consisted of 13 vertical towers in the shape of a parabola, as viewed from an airplane, with various folded dipoles strung between the towers. It also had a very narrow bandwidth of approximately 3 megahertz and a very narrow beam width of approximately 5 to 10 degrees. As a result, they had the gain they obtained from this antenna was a staggering 38 decibels. That's back to what we were talking about with effective radiated power. It's, you know, it's it's complicated. It has to do with how much power, how much focusing you can get out of it, and there's some math involved. We're not going to get into all that because it's just too damn nerdy for this. I'm trying to make this quick, okay? But this is from a paper called "Soviet Superpower Tests Burned the Ionosphere" from shortwave broadcasting a long time ago, back in 1970s. Cannot believe it. It happened. But the Russian woodpecker, the Duga 3 radar, which is actually powered by the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Most people don't know this. Was blamed for a severe winter that caused the deaths of many people in America. And shortly after, 3 years after that winter and the El Nino popping up out of cycle, it is widely believed, or at least by me, and of course, the Russians said so after I said so, after the HBO, little documentary series on the Chernobyl meltdown occurred, that the CIA blew up the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. But, of course, that's speculation, and I will always clarify with that. But this isn't speculation, in my opinion. This is from Popular Communications. So this is not your conspiracy rag. This is like Popular Mechanics, but for radio nerds. Popular Communications 1984 is extremely low frequency, able to manipulate the weather. Has a technique devised by Tesla, permitted the Soviets to alter the world's weather. Last Christmas, the low temperatures records in 21 states and 60 cities were broken, caused the deaths of 138 persons, and damaged many millions of dollars of worth of crops. While this was going on, December in Europe was unseasonably warm. El Nino popped up unexpectedly off schedule in 1982 and 1983, while the Duga 3, the Russian woodpecker, was operating, powered by the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And of course, Dr. Andrew Mitrowski, Canadian State Department, not a conspiratard, said, in the case of the winter of 1976 and 77, the Soviets managed to establish terrestrial electrical resonance and then learned how to establish relatively stable and localized ELF magnetic fields, which were able to hamper or divert the jet stream flow in northern hemisphere. He further stated, as the columnar waves rotated clockwise, the westerly winds were sucked upwards counterclockwise into the upper atmosphere, while a drag bro air brought, that's I missed a T, while a drag brought air from the upper atmosphere on the opposite side. Dr. Mitrowski postulates that Soviet extremely low frequency signals are pulses on a frequency of 31.5 hertz and have caused a giant standing wave troughs in the Rocky Mountains between Alberta and New Mexico, and another through the eastern United States. That they were creating huge standing waves. Standing waves are waves that basically oscillate like this. And that would account for what a lot of people call these gravity wave clouds. They're constantly referred to as HAARP clouds, creating gravity waves artificially, traveling ionospheric disturbances and artificial gravity waves. Creepy stuff, but they did it back in the 70s and 80s. think on that. Dr. Walter Orr Roberts, Aspen Institute of Colorado, said the idea of changing conductivity of the atmosphere as a weather modification experiment is not ridiculous. Al Bielek, American electrical engineer, discussed that the Soviets had been experimenting with these signals on a particular frequency, but it was only after a change to 31.5 hertz that El Nino's strange activity began to be observed. The Washington Post, March 6, 1983, reported that El Nino was the worst it had been in 100 years and that equatorial trade winds blowing east to west stalled. Now, this is history, and those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, and that is the slogan, the motto of weathermodificationhistory.com. Please learn your history, because those who forget it are doomed to repeat it. And of course, that led to the Chernobyl meltdown in 1986 and effectively shutting off the Russian woodpecker, which was only 5.9 or 9.5 kilometers away, 5.9 miles. Yes, it's that close. Nobody ever talks about it. I talk about it because I do mapping and I actually try to connect the dots. And when you connect the dots, they don't lie. So yeah, big old freaking HAARP standing on its side. Weather Warfare on America, 1983. Blown up. Boom. Radiation everywhere. Still to this day. It's bad. The global warming pause. A friend of mine said, could these HAARP activities be the reason for the troubling anomalies in our climate data and modeling, anomalies capitalized upon by climate denying interests in their fight against climate activists and concerned scientists? In his paper, Purposeful Anthropogenic Climate Alteration, RF Ionospheric Heater Arrogance, e.g. HAARP, which was posted on climatex.mit.edu. And of course, after I went and wrote my article on there as well, Accidental Geoengineering, and that becoming the most popular article on the entire site, they went and deleted all of this gentleman's work and my paper, paper as well. You can still read that on ClimateViewer.com, and I have a backup copy of this. I should probably actually bring it up sometime because it's absolutely fascinating, but it's no longer there. You actually have to go to web.archive.org to even be able to see that nowadays. Jeff Martin, thanks for your work. Hey, Jeff, man, I really appreciate that, brother, man. But you can see this here. Let's see if archive.org wants to participate right now. I'm going to do this for my boy because, it's kind of an important paper. You know what I'm saying? And this was the original paper. It's no longer on climatex.mit.edu because they don't want you to read this stuff. And that's my boy right there, Dr. Rick Shankman. Rick Shankman. Man, it's been so long. I had to look his name up because it would be a damn shame for me not to give Rick Shankman a shout out. But he and I had many long conversations. He is an MIT alumni. So it's kind of ironic that he would write these papers on MIT's website and then they would delete him, a actual alumni member of MIT. But he took a lot of work, stuff from my work and thought that I was really killing it and linked a whole bunch of ClimateViewer stuff in here, and that's how we met. But that's pretty freaking awesome. So let's go back to this PowerPoint presentation. We're only about halfway done, man. I am not doing this fast. Southerners, we just can't do anything fast. I mean, I wish I could be fast. Like, I wish I could talk 35 miles per hour. Like I was from New Jersey or New York. But it's just not possible, man. I'm sorry, play me in 2 times. That's what a lot of people do. They just put it in 2 times speed. So do that. Project Lucy in the sky with diamonds generates sunshine reflecting noctilucent clouds in increasing amounts in the mesosphere, which will reflect away the sun's energy back into space. Noctilucent clouds formed from the breakdown of methane in a circular zone above the HAARP transmitter. 4 other similar facilities in the world: High Pass, Alaska; Arecibo, Puerto Rico; Icecap, Norway; and Sura, Russia. High Pass is closed. Arecibo and Norway and Russia we talked about already. But this is from the Arctic Methane Emergency Group talking about finding, laser detection, atmospheric methane, cloud detection, energization, and methane destruction, that you could cross the beams and actually focus your energy on atmospheric methane and compress them into diamonds. Compress that into diamonds. And those diamonds in the sky would reflect sunlight. Geoengineering to cool the planet. You cannot make this stuff up. And that was from John Neeson from the Arctic Methane Emergency Group. Most of their stuff's been deleted. Anyway, Jack Anderson, the gentleman, the scholar, the best reporter in history. Some call him ambulance chaser and a bullshit artist, but regardless, Jack Anderson, he not only was responsible for the Pentagon Papers, which led to the disclosure of Operation Popeye and weather warfare in Vietnam, but Jack Anderson, near the end of his life, actually he wrote a paper. Jan Eric Winnis. Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. He put out this, and this is what's amazing to me. This is from the Washington Post in 1981, and it says declassified in part, sanitized copy for approved release 2012 from the CIA's reading room. So something that Jack Anderson wrote in the Washington Post newspaper then became classified and then became unclassified again and released into Lieutenant Adabom. Love your website, man. God, you guys are making me smile right now. Thank you so much for the super chat, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This blows my mind here, that something that was written in a newspaper could end up in the CIA's reading room of classified materials to start with. But Jack Anderson, the race for Star Wars weapons. Some of you, probably maybe half of you, are old like me. I'm 45 years old and can remember Ronald Reagan and can remember the 1980s where everybody was doing cocaine. And by the way, Ronald Reagan talked about Star Wars a lot. He called it the Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, that he could create a system of satellites that could shoot down nuclear missiles with laser beams and stuff. But regardless, the race for Star Wars weapons, overall the US and Russia high energy laser programs are roughly equal at present time. 1981. Charged particle beam devices, or CPBs, represent a new phase in the historical development of technology. The study reports, when perfected, these controlled lightning bolts, remember that from earlier? Lightning bolts. Controlled lightning bolts can solve a wide range of scientific and industrial problems, the report states, but it adds ominously. Soviet work on charged particle beams is strong in exactly the areas needed for weapons application. It is believed the Soviets are ahead of the United States in many other particle beam weapon technologies. 1981. So, chew on that. Because space warfare is the reason why Donald Trump created a space force, because it's getting pretty freaking crazy up there right now. I mean, you got kamikaze satellites. I mean, they literally are just a floating bomb pretending to be a satellite, waiting for the signal, and they'll go fly into another satellite and blow it up. You got hijacker satellites, which can fly over to, like, say, a an American military satellite, the Milstar, big old clunky thing, grab a hold of it, attach a listening device to it, or literally just grab a hold of it and throw it out of orbit. Or you've got, like the Chinese are doing, shooting laser beams at spy satellites and blinding them. So space warfare is going on. Control of space means control of the world. And control of things in space also means control of the world. Space warfare. You can't make this stuff up. Yeah. That's why. Yeah. Trump's Space Force. You can laugh at him all you want, but that was a pretty brilliant move there. And quoting Donald Trump, space, it's where it's at. Oh, God. Radiation belt remediation, artificial aurora. The Christofilos effect could fry satellites and intercontinental ballistic missiles. The fact that they learned that basically whenever they have these artificial radiation belts created by upper atmospheric nuclear explosions or through firing Whistler waves and, electromagnetic missiles, that they can actually bounce highly energized particles from pole to pole along the magnetic field lines of the Van Allen belt. And those will fry satellites. In fact, during Starfish Prime, as you see here, one of those nuclear explosions, that's exactly what happened. Many satellites were damaged due to the artificial radiation belts that were created. So they had to figure out a way to suck that radiation out of space because now there's a permanent artificial radiation belt in the low Earth orbit. That's bad. So they talked about using HAARP as a vacuum for that. You cannot make this stuff up. Satellite threat due to high altitude nuclear detonations from Dennis Papadopoulos at the University of Maryland. At the Tether Panel HAARP study also said, use HAARP facility in Alaska as a wind tunnel to determine the feasibility and engineering specifications of a mitigation system for radiation belt remediation or sucking radiation out of space. Big map on how that works right here on the side, showing HAARP, heated region right here, injected waves going this way, interaction region, amplified and or triggered waves, reflected waves. This is one hop. They call this a hop. So depending on where you are in the world, the higher the latitude, the longer the distance traveled. So Arecibo would be the small ring down here at the bottom because Puerto Rico is located near the equator. So whenever it's shooting its beams up into the sky, they're going to reflect and land down here. Whereas HAARP is all the way up in Alaska, so it's going to fire the long distance route. This is called one hop, and then two hops is back. It reflects all the way back and then dumps precipitating electrons on the pole, creating artificial aurora. That is how you suck radiation out of space, by firing Whistler waves and other SAW waves. We're going to get into all that in just a second. And this is from Chris Follin's Harpoon. Love the name Harpoon program, where they were creating artificial air glow and showing where where it could be visible from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And this is what air glow looks like, really big air glow, not just the type they make from HAARP. This is what it looks like from HAARP. It's just this tiny little ring above the IRI. You can see it there. And this is it being observed from a little further away. Extremely low frequency waves and ULF waves creating ELF from high frequency transmissions using the sky as an electronic generator. And there's still so much more. You know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it right there. And we're going to pop into this for a part 2. Because you know what? I got a lot more I'd like to say, and I'd like to say it fully. So please, guys, hit that subscribe button. Tune in for the next one. We'll catch you back up on that. And, please continue to support me on Patreon, PayPal. Make sure you come over to connect.climateviewer.com because that's where all my socials are. That's where all my other places are. You can find me in all my websites. And remember, please take this information and attack ideas, not people.